The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Podcast here, coming to you on July 14th, 2020. I had to pause there, make sure I got it right. It is July 14th. Wow, I can't believe we're already in the middle of July. Like, we're already in the middle of the year, and we're already on the back end of this year. A disastrous year, obviously. Coronavirus, unrest, the whole nine. Man, I'm ready to get back to normal. Let's do it. Let's do it. Again, this podcast you can find on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, all that good stuff. Anywhere where you find podcast catchers, you're bound to find this here show. Hope you guys enjoyed the last episode I recorded last night. I put out this morning. With both my friends Zach Degenerate and Kyle Nash, talking a lot of sports this time. A lot of football. I mean, I'm not even sure we're going to have football this year. I'm definitely in the camp of college football and being very doubtful we're going to have college football this year. NFL, I'm still 50-50 on because I think the money will drive that conversation. But college football, because of the nature of the sport, kids are not getting paid and the risk factor and all that. But that's another conversation another day. We actually had that conversation yesterday, so we'll see what happens, obviously, going forward with that. We discussed in the last episode, I guess we'll touch on it again real quick before we get to the, one more time, about the Redskins and them officially retiring the name yesterday, on Monday, retiring the name Redskins. Obviously, opinions on that on the last podcast with Zach and Kyle. Kyle, of course, had an opinion about them probably taking Red Tails as a possible name. Of course, there's a lawyer who brought up all the names because #capitalism, of course. But I thought that was a good idea. Obviously, Washington Warriors could be another option. We'll see. Zach is actually a resident diehard Redskins fan, so I definitely wanted to hear his thoughts on that. So if you listen to that last episode of this, check it out if you get a chance, please. It was a really good conversation with both guys. Two separate interviews, but into one episode. But like I said, as I've said, I was never invested in the story necessarily at any point. My only thoughts on it really was the fact that if there were people that were, insulted or offended by the name itself, and the legitimate people, of course, tribes. I'm a black man. I'm not, I can't get insulted. I'm not gonna get offended by something like that. I'm not Indian. I think I'm 1/8 Indian actually, but that's not really. I don't really acknowledge. That's not acknowledge. I don't really, think about that. But the point is somebody who's of Indian descent is in a tribe or a crew is offended by the name Redskins, you gotta take it seriously. I know it's easy to get offended by everything else, but we can still cut through the noise in a good way and whatnot. And so, kudos for progress, man. Kudos. I'm like I said, I'm all about rational conversation, and if people are offended by that, and we need to at least take them seriously. Obviously, it took sponsors like FedEx and Nike and other sponsors, putting pressure on Dan Snyder to do this, and he succumbed to the pressure. We want to call it woke culture, he could do so, whatever. But I do think in the end, because there are people who were insulted and offended by the name, the right thing was done here. Period of discussion. This is not a leftist take. This is common sense. I'm all about the common sense here. You know that. Facts over fucking feelings. That's my motto, buddy. That's my motto. So we'll hopefully soon we'll see a name, the name of the team. We're not even sure. Like I said, the names that we've heard that may be mentioned or could be considered right now currently owned by some lawyer again. So we'll see what happens there with the Redskins formerly Redskins, I'd say. Like I said, sports is starting to ratchet a little bit now because, obviously NBA is returning in a couple weeks. WNBA is coming back, I think, also too. Baseball starting up soon. I mean, we already have camps, or whatever you call it. the biggest news so far is that in the NBA is that Russell Westbrook tested positive for COVID-19. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is that he tested for this before getting into the bubble. As you know, players and teams are entering the bubble now for isolation. And, it's good that he's not, obviously not in the bubble yet. But, you see this with Russell Westbrook, a star, obviously in his own right, top 15 player in the league. I'm going to watch, obviously, because I'm a sports fan. I'm a basketball junkie, of course. So I'm going to watch it, of course, But I have a bad feeling about all this when it pertains to the NBA. I understand why they're doing it, money and on the table and all that, being left on the table. But it just feels really, it just feels rushed. It feels, I don't know. I'm not really, digging all this. But again, it's not my money, The one argument I will say that can be made is that, well, yeah, I'm working now too, despite all this. I have to pay my bills, and yeah, sure, they're rich, whatever. But it's still, we can't rationalize them, players and owners. That's their world, but they have money to be made also too. So I can't necessarily knock that either, because I'm doing the same thing on my end when I'm still working. I have the option to stay. I had the option to stay home and and stay on unemployment. I chose not to because I figured because I don't want to risk losing my job. This is my opinion. I think I made right. I think I made the right decision so far. We're not even sure if they're going to extend unemployment July 31st. Right now we're now July 14th, and there's no talks about extending the CARES Act. And that's a whole other conversation. We can probably go down that road, later in the month if indeed that doesn't happen, because there's a lot of politics involved in that that I disagree with. But yeah, it's just the optics, this whole thing, man. But Westbrook getting COVID-19 and possibly I've heard rumors last night that James Harden had it, but that was a really bad source, a really untrustworthy source. So I didn't want to put it out there. But who knows? It wouldn't shock me if Westbrook got it. Certainly James Harden can get it, So, I don't know. It's, we'll see. Like I said, it's just, the optics don't feel good about this. I hope it goes through fine. I'm hoping the NBA, able to get through the, the seeding games and then the playing games and then get into the playoffs and without getting tripped up. But you're looking at, July, so August, September, October. I mean, they already said the season will end in November. If everything plays out the way it should, the season will end until October, November. Yeah, there's a lot of time ahead of us. That's between now and election time. So, yeah. I'm hoping things work out for the best of the NBA, but I'm expecting the worst. And I hate saying that, but that's what I'm saying. Okay. Let's talk AEW real quick and wrestling. So the last 3 weeks of the Wednesday Night Wars, NXT, AEW's been dominating, when I say dominating, I mean they've won the vast majority of the ratings war between AEW Dynamite Wednesday and WWE NXT on Wednesday. However, the last 3 weeks, NXT has won the overall numbers, matchup, of course, and AEW has kind of looked petty. But now, why do I say they look kind of petty? Because the last couple of weeks on Twitter, on social media, both Chris Jericho and the owner of AEW, Tony Khan, who's also family owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, has all of a sudden started to defend the fact that even though they lost the last 3 weeks, they're still winning the 18 to 49 demo. The important demo. Now, let me be clear. I think it's very important to win those demos because obviously there's a lot of marketing involved in that and whatnot. So I'm not saying they're wrong for feeling the way they feel and saying what they're saying. But it's funny. They were never saying this when they were beating NXT in the overall numbers. And by the way, AEW has won that demo in these 3 weeks, for the record. So, and which they're now pointing out to us. But when AEW was winning the ratings war every week, no one ever mentioned the demo. I mean, when I say no one, I mean like no one of significance, like Chris Jericho or Tony Khan, or anybody for that matter, who's a top level personality or player at AEW. all of a sudden they're starting to make that point. Oh, it's important, this and that. And Chris Jericho is going at it with fans and whatnot. And I even tweeted at Jericho and Khan, and I said, listen, I'm an AEW diehard. I love your product. I actually prefer that over anything WWE is doing right now. I love NXT, and Raw, SmackDown is night and day. Sometimes it depends on the night how I'm feeling. But I love AEW. I am a diehard. I have not missed an episode of Dynamite since it debuted in October. At all. I have not missed an episode at all. However, you come off looking petty and stupid. Okay? Just let it lie. Okay? You lost a couple weeks. And by the way, you lost the last couple weeks, but it was not you lost by big amounts. Like, you were nip and tuck with NXT. You were still getting good numbers in comparison. And when you were beating NXT those other 30-something weeks, you were pretty dominant in those in most of those encounters. So yeah, NXT had a good couple weeks. They've had some big matches too, to be honest with you. That Keith Lee Adam Cole match was a big deal. Even though the results leaked out a week before that, it was still a big deal, But you come off looking petty. Like, you really do you look really petty. Tony Khan sitting there defending it. Like, when you have to go out of your way to defend something, that you weren't defending for the first, 40-something weeks, whatever, you look kind of sad. And Chris Jericho, I don't know. This is the thing where, are you that much in a bubble where you don't get the dose of reality? How you look, how the optics look by you doing this? It's weird. It's really weird. And look, I think AEW will end up winning the demo, end up winning not just this demo this week, but they'll win the overall ratings war this week. And, people say, well, who gives a fuck what ratings war? And for the record, back in 1998, 99, at the height of the Monday Night Wars, no one gave a shit about the demos. Certainly the numbers were much higher. Like, it was like Raw getting 4.4, Nitro getting 4.8, or even in 99, it was like in the sixes. So it's like you're arguing over scraps, really, be honest, in comparison. Now, granted that the industry has changed in the last 20-something years. The way we intake television has changed in the last 20-something years. So I'm not going to knock AEW NXT for that. But when you start coming out with that bullshit, like, NXT didn't say anything. When they were losing to AEW every week, they weren't saying anything publicly. You see Triple H come out there and sitting there and say, oh, well, this and that, and demos and this and that, and oh yeah, we stole the number one company. Yeah, we know that already. They have to brag about it. Like, AEW, they just look very petty. Sorry, they do. Jericho, Khan, please. Optics matter sometimes, man. And to be honest with you, it really shouldn't in the end, but you run the risk of alienating people, honestly, by doing that. So, anyway, I also, what I listened to last week, co-podcast, of course. I'm back. I'm actually back listening to Dan Lebertard and Colin Cowherd. I resubscribed to both the podcasts this past week. As sports started to ratchet up again. They're one of the few shows I listen to on a daily basis. Sports podcasts, radio shows, what do you call it? I listen to Cowherd's 40-minute edited down version for the 3-hour show. Lebertard, I'll listen to the best of and maybe the local hour, depending who's on there. So I'm back to listening to that. I also listened last week. Recently, I got back on the Grilling JR train. I've been kind of slacking on all the Conrad Thompson podcasts. About 2 weeks ago, they did an episode on Bret Hart and his 1996 run. Of course, that was a year where he got back the title, I think in November 95 against Diesel, and lost the title to Shawn Michaels in an Iron Man match at WrestleMania 12 that year. Funny enough, because I just remember, too, as I was saying that, and as I remember listening to that podcast, I've never watched the entire Iron Man match from start to finish. Obviously, I know who won. I've seen definitely highlights of the show, of the match, but that was a 1-hour match. But I've never actually watched the entire match from start to finish. And I think I'm going to do that this weekend, on my next day off. If I'm not podcasting, I've been podcasting every chance I get. My wife's out tonight, so I say, well, get a little slow show in there, why not? But yeah, the 96, it obviously goes over Bret's little run as title as the bridge title, the placeholder from Diesel to Shawn Michaels' first title run in 96. Bret takes a little hiatus from that point until November, where he starts that feud with Stone Cold Steve Austin in Survivor Series that year, which is a big turning point in not just Bret's career, of course, but also Steve Austin's career. You can argue that Bret really giving Steve Austin the rub is what really got Steve Austin on track to being who obviously the biggest superstar in the history of the entire business. So great listen with Jim Ross and Conrad Thompson. Check it out when you get a chance. It's really good. All right, so I was on Twitter yesterday. Chance the Rapper. I've never to this day heard a single note of Chance the Rapper's music, and yet this guy has over 8 million followers on Twitter. It's weird. I don't get it. I heard him talk, of course, but he was on. I'm gonna find these tweets right now if I get a chance. Let me pause this quick and look it up real quick. All right, I found the tweets. Basically, he was having discussions about the upcoming election. Joe Biden against Donald Trump, and he was basically, I guess, defending Kanye West and his candidacy. Which, by the way, now as of this recording, supposedly he's out of the race already. That lasted 13 days. But anyway, he was talking about to people on Twitter about asking why they're pro Biden or why they're more pro Biden or more anti Kanye. This is one of his first tweets. I think maybe this can explain what he's saying here. Here's a tweet from yesterday. He goes, "Are you more pro Biden or anti Ye, me Kanye, and why? I get that you'll want to reply that you're just trying to quote get Trump out, but in this hypothetical scenario where you're placing Trump, can someone explain why Joe Biden would be better?" And of course, people came back at him, and he replied. People were, I guess, giving him shit about it, and he replied saying, he said, "I finally got the answer now. I understand. Y'all trust Biden more than y'all trust Ye. I just don't. I think I understand why. I just don't feel the same way." And he brings up things about education and and funding and eradicating homelessness, all that. And he also brought up this thing about he said this. He goes, "How do you feel as an individual? How do you as an individual feel about prison abolishing and universal basic housing? And if you're in favor of those things, how important are these in terms of immediacy?" Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. But this is the problem I have with Chance right there. All these things he's saying, honestly, these are actually good things to talk about. Absolutely, he's not wrong for bringing this thing up and why Joe Biden's a better choice. You should always, figure out why you would vote for one guy and not the other. The problem with Chance the Rapper here is that he is 6 months too late bringing this up now. Okay, and as far as I know, I don't remember him talking about this at all on social media when we had over 10 Democratic options before we came down to Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. I remember him saying this. So to me, for him to say this now in July is really intellectually dishonest. It really is. Like, you had a guy in Andrew Yang who was for UBI, Universal Basic Income. Bernie Sanders for universal health care. Elizabeth Warren, the same thing. A lot of guys, a lot of diversity on the Democratic side. And you never once even, spoke out about which candidate of the 10 or 12 options were worth looking into. You wait until Joe Biden is the official nominee for Democratic Party for President of the United States to now bring this up. The time to have this conversation was 6 months ago. We are where we are now. It's Trump against Biden. Period. In discussion. You're way too late to get on this train. Again, you sound intellectually dishonest, and people agree with me too. I put out there, people were replying, I agree. And I think also he kind of calmed down after a while. I think people level him down a little bit with the situation. But look, again, I'm not saying Joe Biden is the best option at all. In fact, I've been very, I've been on this podcast that if I had a choice between any of the Democratic, and I'm not even a Democrat for the records, I can't even vote anyway. I'm an MPA. If I had a choice between any, of the nominees that I saw, back 6 months ago, late last year, Andrew Yang was the guy I really wanted to win because he was one of the only guys talking about issues. Give me more than just fuck Trump. Give me more than just that. Give me more than anyone about Trump. Give me some real ideas, real tangible ideas. And Andrew Yang was bringing tangible ideas to the table. Bernie Sanders, same thing. You may not agree with the ideas they brought to the table, but they're bringing ideas. You know what I'm saying? So, to me, Chance the Rapper came off intellectually dishonest. That's my opinion. He did. And people agree with that. And I think that's why he backed off after a little while. Maybe he was just trying to get more engagement on his social media. I mean, but again, this is a guy. I don't want to judge a guy because again, he may actually know more than we realize in terms of politics. I don't know the guy personally. I mean, I have not heard one single note of his music, and yet this guy has 8.4 million followers. Somebody please explain that to me. Seriously, explain it to me. Sticking to politics, I actually wrote a blog today because I was pissed off. Ted Cruz pissed me off again. Yeah, I wrote a blog today on earnestly.com. Check it out, where I basically titled "Ted Cruz is a loser." All right, so Ted Cruz yesterday, I guess, was flying in and out. I don't know where exactly, but he was flying on American Airlines, and it was in Texas. And obviously, it's mandatory in the state of Texas, especially in airports, to wear your mask, whether you're on a plane or in the airport itself. And there's pictures of Ted Cruz not wearing a mask in the airport lobby or on the flight itself. And it bothered me because it bothered me not because of the mask part. Obviously, the mask is obviously annoying. I mean, it's annoying to wear a mask, but you have to do it. You do it to help others. But this is the guy, Ted Cruz, who's also in a role of leadership. He's in a role of leadership, a senator, a state senator, and obviously a man of faith, and I'm from that world myself, and I'm taught to, always been taught, especially if you're a leader, lead by example. And here's Ted Cruz, regardless of his politics, regardless of how he feels on the record about, whether he should wear a mask or not, he should be wearing a mask. Because that's the right thing to do, based on the law. You tell us to follow the law, and we follow the law. Why aren't you doing the same? It doesn't say that mandatory wear masks, and that's your name's Ted Cruz, or unless you're a politician, or you're whatnot. And to me, it goes back to something I've been saying for the last 4 years about Ted Cruz. He has no respect for himself. And I say that because this is the same guy who allowed Donald Trump, then candidate Donald Trump in 2016, allowed Donald Trump to insult his wife Heidi and his father Rafael Cruz. I'm sorry. Politics aside, you start talking about my wife, my kids, or my parents, we're gonna have words. I'm sorry. Instead, this guy sucks up to Donald Trump, and he has no self-respect for himself. So how can we expect him to have respect for others? Obviously. It's sad because forget politics. It's funny. I spoke about this, I think, a couple episodes ago about, when I saw I was watching The Circus again, season 5, and I kind of, went back to when I watched the show back in 2016, and that during the election, the campaign, Ted Cruz obviously was campaign for president at the time, and I remember saying, even though I'm not going to vote for the guy, and, obviously I would never, it's not someone I necessarily really agree with on a lot of his politics, that the show made him look human. Like, he looked like a robot for once. And he came off likable. And then he actually gained some points for me, too, at that same year at the Republican National Convention. When the night they were going to, obviously, Donald Trump was supposed to be the official nominee for the party, which eventually won the election, of course. That night, Ted Cruz did not endorse him. Surprisingly, not endorse him. Told the 1,000 delegates in attendance to, quote, vote with your conscience. I actually respected him. I thought it was political suicide at the time. Clearly, it hasn't been the case. He still got reelected in 2018, barely over Beto O'Rourke. But he actually showed some balls there for once. But to me, Ted Cruz is kind of that guy. One step forward, 3 steps back. You kind of respect him a little bit because of what he did, but then he goes back and does this shit. So it's hard to feel bad for the guy. So, I call him a loser. Sorry. It sounds kind of, rough, but it applies. And I'm somebody who, again, I call it down the middle. I'm not one of those partisan guys. You already know this already. If you're full of shit, you're full of shit. I've called out liberals. I've called out conservatives. I've called out moderates. I've called out centrists. I've called anybody out. If you're an asshole and you're somebody that does not, practice or preach, I'm going to call you out in discussion, period. So Ted Cruz is, he has no respect. It's sad. You're a leader. Even if you don't agree with the whole mask wearing, you think that all this COVID-19 shit is a hoax. For the sake of your country, for the sake of your citizens that you are leading, do it. It makes no sense at all. The other thing this week too that's been on on the minds of many, the Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith fiasco, if you will. Look, I didn't give a shit about it, to be honest with you. Like I heard the thing with first off the guy that allegedly, I guess, well, Jada had a relationship with August Alsina, whoever he is. We heard that 2 weeks ago, him admitting that they had a thing while Will and her were separated. First off, I never heard of who the guy was I never knew who the guy was until literally that day when he mentioned it. Okay, and then last week's Red Table Talk, Will Smith and Jada decided to go on the show, and just talk about the situation, and they confirmed, of course, everything that happened with her going to having a relationship with August Alsina, a guy that's 20 years younger than her or whatever. I didn't care, but everybody kept talking about it, so I ended up watching little parts of that video, part of the interview, part of that part that mattered about the relationship, what was going on at the time, all that. Will Smith looked really hurt. Even though this thing happened, I think 4 years ago, 2016, I believe it was, when they were separated. They looked really hurt. He looked really hurt still. And to me, not to knock on Jada here, but Jada came off as very narcissistic and just kind of like trying to make excuses for what she did and all that and whatever. Look, now it was rumored for years that those two were, swingers, if you will. They were having an open relationship, whatever. That's their bag, obviously. If that's what they want to do, that's up to them. But like the whole thing, like it's okay. People say don't judge them. Well, I'm sorry, you actually they're the ones that decide to make this public. Once you put something public, what are we gonna do? Just not comment on it, not judge. We're gonna judge you because you bring it out to the forefront. So Jada came off as very narcissistic and just like making every excuse for what she did and all that, and kind of like whatever. And Will looked really hurt still. Look, I don't know their marriage, dude. I mean, all they were doing really at the end there was protecting their brand, because that whole thing, the whole, I don't even want to say it's a farce, because look, the fact of the matter is, all marriages are different. All marriages have challenges. Myself, I've been married almost 10 years, and my wife and I, Lauren and I, we definitely have challenges in the past, but at least from what I'm saying, that we've always worked things out, and they're no different. But because of the pedestal people put that couple for many years, Jada and Will, the perfect couple, it did humanize them to some degree. I agree, I agree with that. But at the same time, I don't know. I felt, I don't know why I care that much, but I mean, it came off as, Jada again looking like full of herself and whatever, and you can argue she was, she admitted her being a codependent and whatever, and wanting to help August Alsina, and people were saying that, well, she's a predator for doing what she did. Maybe, that could be something to be considered. I'm not gonna sit and judge it again, but I don't know. It's just weird times we're living in, man. Weird times, So anyway, well, that's the Will and Jada story. I'm sure there's more to it, I guess, right? Finally, before I go, so guess what? I actually watched Hamilton. My wife is obsessed with Hamilton. She watched the debut about 2 weeks ago with one of her best friends. I didn't watch it because I was like, not right now. I'll watch it later. I always wanted to watch it for the record because Hamilton, of course, the play surrounding Alexander Hamilton, one of the forefathers of this country. And 1 second. I'm not necessarily a big fan of musicals. I respect it, but it's not something I will go out of my way to watch all the time. But I'm also a big American history nerd. Big time American history nerd. So the subject matter on this is already interesting as it is. Then you look at the angle, the way they did it. It's a hip hop musical. And I gotta tell you, like, I knew I'd like it, But I didn't think I liked it in the way that I do. Like, I watched it in two parts. I watched, last Friday, I watched the first part. It was really late. Had to go to bed. Excuse me. And then I finished it last night with my wife. And I was really stunned how good this thing is. These actors are amazing. And I gotta tell you, once again, we talk about TV and movies and all that. I think it's tougher to do Broadway, man. I think I have probably more respect for people who do Broadway and stage shows than anything else. It's like being a musician. It's like being, in a band. I mean, I can relate to that because I used to be in a band for many years, And the people on that cast, fucking incredible, When I get to details, I mean, obviously, like I said, I like how that story is portrayed. I like that they use people of color in the show. It's funny because forefathers of the country are all white, but using a Spanish guy playing Hamilton and playing black guys playing George Washington and all that. Phenomenal, and the talent, this is the talent of those guys, truly incredible. My favorite character really on the entire thing was the King of England. He was phenomenal. I think it's Jonathan Gold, what his name is. He was on Glee. I think my wife told me she was on Glee. Very talented guy. Gosh, it was great. Lin-Manuel Miranda? The guy who played Hamilton, the guy who put the whole thing together. He was phenomenal, of course. To me, the highlight of the whole thing was the guy that played his wife. I think it was Eliza. She was, to be honest with you, the story really surrounded her in the end. So, yeah, I loved it. I had a great time watching it. I watched it again. I love the soundtrack too, especially we've been playing a lot in the house here with the kids. I came away really appreciating it. I knew I like it, but I didn't think I like it at the level I didn't think I like it at the level that I do. And phenomenal piece of work. So, okay, now I guess that'll be it for now. Again, I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. Of course, EarnestChristian.com. Check out my piece I wrote on Tech Cruz today. And until the next pod, we'll talk later. Love you guys. Take care. Stay up and stay safe, especially. Later.